Hello students, welcome to Darasa where learning is made easy, not only easy but very easy. I am Whitney and today I'm taking you through the topic of multiplication of decimals. Remember, we've done addition, we've done subtraction and we've done division. So today we are winding up with multiplication. Now, example, you're given a number, two decimal numbers to multiply. How do we do this? Remember, in primary, so this is Form 1, in primary, you've done numbers like 2 times 3, 4 times 3, 327 times 23. Those were numbers which did not involve decimal points. And we said numbers that involve decimal points are unique numbers because they have a dot somewhere. And in case when you're having a whole number like 423, we've usually said that our statements usually end with a dot at the end. So we are assuming there is a dot at the end. Now, when calculating decimal numbers, what you do is you use the normal method. So you assume your decimal points, then you calculate them. After calculating, you count your numbers to the right of your decimal point, and then after calculating your end product, you calculate your decimal places, the ones you counted. So you take your end product, then from the farthest end, you count the number of decimal places you'd found, then you put so I'll repeat, you're calculating, you're multiplying your decimal numbers. So what you do is you assume, so you've been given two decimal numbers, so your numbers are involving dots. So that is what differentiates a real number from a decimal number. So after being given your two numbers, you assume your points. So assuming your points, you're going to calculate your numbers. And then after calculating your numbers, remember you had two numbers. So these two numbers, to the right of your decimal point, there are decimal places. Remember, we talked about place values. So this side of tenths, hundreds, thousands, you count your numbers. So if one number has 2, the other has 2, the total will be 4 numbers. So after calculating your end product, from the end, you put 4 decimal places. So you wow from the end. So you're going to wow 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, up to the 4th time. So the 4th place, you place your dot. Let's use an example. So you're given 0.5 times 0.7. So we've said the first thing you're going to do is you assume your decimal point. So you're having 0.5 and 0.7. 7 times 5 is 35. So you're going to write your 35. Then I've said it's 0.5 and 0.7. So the numbers to the right of your decimal are 1, 1 in each. So 1 plus 1 totals to 2. So coming to your answer, 35, from the end, you want to place your decimal point. So from the end, you count 2 steps. So counting, you're going to have 1, 2. So your point will be before your 3. So you put your point and you must have a 0. Remember, we said numbers on the left represent whole numbers and numbers to the right represent decimal numbers. So that will be your answer. Another example is 3.25 times 0.03. So assuming your decimals, you're going to have 325 times 3. So you calculate this. Remember, in Form 1, we don't use calculators. So you're going to have 325 times 3 and you will get 975. But then that's not our answer. We have to look for the place where we are going to place our decimal point. Remember, it is this decimal point that makes a decimal number unique. So looking at our numbers, it's 3.25 and 0.03. So to the right of your decimal points, we are having two numbers. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So coming to the answer you'd gotten, which was 975, what you're going to do is from the end, you count 4 steps so that you can be able to place your dot. So starting from the end, you will wow 1 time, 2 time, 3 time, 4th time. Now, on the 4th position, you don't have a number. So what do? You replace it with a 0. So putting a 0, then a decimal point before it, you're going to have your number as 0.0975. And again, remember, when you're having decimal numbers, it is the numbers after the decimal place that will tell you whether your answer is correct or wrong. So looking at your numbers, they had 2, 2. So at the end, you're supposed to have 4 numbers after the decimal point. So if you don't have 4 numbers, your answer is definitely wrong. Let's look at a last example. So we are having 4.15 times 0.021. So the same thing applies. You first of all assume your decimal places. So assuming, you're going to take 415 times 21 and calculating this using long method, you're going to get 8,715. But is this your answer? Definitely not, because remember, we were multiplying decimal numbers. So we have to go back to our question and count the numbers after the decimal place. And the first one has 2, the second one has 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. So you go back to the answer you got, your product. So we want to place our decimal point. So from the farthest end, you count 5 steps. So counting, you're going to find that there's a place again where you don't have a number, and you said we replace that with 0. So you're going to get your answer as 0.08715. Now, in some instances, we're usually combining division and multiplication, and in most cases, we're usually given word problems. Example, the product of 2 numbers is 11.9. If one of the numbers is 4.25, what is the other number? Remember, we said in word problems, the first time you read your question is to just get familiar with it. Then you read it for the second time to understand your question. So we've read it the first time, so now we are reading to understand. So it's saying the product of 2 numbers is 11.9. Of course, you must know what product means, and product means we are multiplying. So it means a number A times a number B should give you 11.9. If one of the numbers is 4.25, so we are having 4.25 times a number B is 11.9. What is the other number? So 4.25 times B is 4.25B is equals to 11.9. So how do we get B? Remember, we are having a number before B. So what we do, we divide both sides by 4.25 and our B will be 2.8. And again, remember, in division, when we are dividing decimal numbers, we usually measure on our denominator. So this, our denominator, we make it to be a power of 10. So making it to be a power of 10, we had, at some point we had 11.9 divided by 4.25. So our numerator is 11.9, our denominator is 4.25. And looking at our denominator, it has how many decimal places? 2 decimal places. And we want to make it a whole number. So how do we get rid of these 2 decimal places? We multiply it by 100. And remember, whatever we do to the denominator, we also do it to the numerator. So at the numerator, we will also multiply it by 100. And multiplying, we will get 11,900 all over 42,500. Then it's when we put our decimal place. And remember again, our main aim was to make the denominator a whole number. So dividing this is when you'll get your answer as 2.8. Another word problem is Ratemo's car travels 12.5 kilometers on 1 liter of petrol. if he traveled 312.5 kilometers in one day, how many liters of petrol did he use? Then again, at the back of your mind, you know we are having Ratemo, and Ratemo is using a car, and this car is using fuel. So now you go back to read your question to understand your question. So it's saying Ratemo's car travels 12.5 kilometers on 1 liter of petrol. So you underline that statement. It's 12.5 kilometers on 1 liter of petrol. So if he travels 12.5 kilometers, he uses 1 liter of petrol. So 12.5 is equals to 1. If he travels 312.5 kilometers, how many liters of petrol did he use? So arranging them the way I have arranged them here, you're going to have 12.5 is equals to 1. What about 312.5? So what do? You cross multiply. So cross multiplying, you're going to have 312.5 times 1 all over 12.5. So at some point, we are dividing. And again, we've said in dividing, we want to make our denominator a power of 10. And our denominator has how many numbers after the decimal? 1. So it means we are going to multiply it by 10. But again, remember, we have a numerator. And whatever we do to the denominator, we also do to the numerator. So what you're going to have is 3,125 divide by 125. You'll get your answer as 25. Let's look at a last example. It's saying a certain district realized 778.88 millimeters of rainfall in 7 days. You're not being told in each day, in 7 days. What was the average rainfall per day? So what do? You must know how to calculate average, and average is usually the total over n. And here we are given our total as 778.8 and our number of days are 7. So what are we going to do? That's very simple. We simply divide. So dividing, we are going to get 111.25. In multiplication, when you're given two decimal numbers, you assume your decimal points. So you take your numbers as whole, you multiply. After multiplying, you're going to get a product. Then you'll go back to your question, count the number of decimal places after the decimal point, and then come back to your product and replace your numbers from the end. So it is these two decimal places that will guide you on your answer. And again, we've looked at word problems, and in our word problems, sometimes we find that multiplication and division combine together. So in our next class, we are going to start on algebraic expression. I've been your teacher, Whitney. Until next time.